Today we're going to look at something that a lot of people think is really weird, and when we first do it, you're going to go, when am I ever going to use this in real life? But actually, it's one of the most important skills that we could talk about, especially as it relates to your science classes, because a lot of things will boil down to being able to solve an equation for a specific variable. And so if you can work on that, then it's really going to help whenever you have to solve for a formula in either a math or a science class. It's actually very practical, even though at first it seems kind of abstract. And what it's called is solving a literal equation. You're going to use the same steps for solving literal equations, except for that you don't get a number for your answer. You are literally rearranging the equation into a new equation. Your answers for these are going to look, I'll just say, a little bit ugly, and that's okay. The point is, don't squish everything together, okay? We're just going to think about what operation I have in the problem and then undo it. So don't write this next part down. I just want to show you for number 1, I'm going to just change it a little bit. I'm just going to take off 2 of those letters, well, 3 of them actually, and then replace the A with a 9. Okay, if I just had an equation like this, what would be my 2 steps? I would minus 3, so 9x, and I'm going to write that. Once again, you're not writing this down, I'm just showing you. I'm going to pretend I can't combine the 2 minus 3. And then my next step would be to divide by 9. So I would get x equals 2 minus 3 over 9. But usually I would have simplified the 2 minus 3 to negative 1. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Just because I have these letters in here doesn't mean I do the math any differently. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can do it. And I don't really care which way you do, but I think some of you will prefer one way over the other. So let's look at number 1. I'm learning how to use this new program, so bear with me as things are a little topsy-turvy. So the first thing you want to do, the first several problems tell you to solve for x. So the first thing you want to do is circle that variable. Now, I'm going to show you, once again, 2 methods. Choose which one you like. The first one I'm going to show you is solving it in the normal way. So in the normal way, what I would do is start with that plus 3b. So to undo a plus 3b, I'm going to minus 3b from both sides. So on the left side, I would be left with ax equals, and now what's weird is that I can't combine 2f minus 3b. So I literally write 2f minus 3b. Circle what you're solving for again, because notice I have 2 variables, so I want to make sure I'm circling the one that I want. What is outside what I circled? The a. So I'm going to divide, since that's multiplication, I do the opposite. So I'm going to divide by a, and what's on the right is my final answer. X equals 2f minus 3b divided by a. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to do a do-undo chart, which when you start getting really confused with all the letters might be a better way for you to approach the problem. So what you want to do is go back to your starting equation. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to think about what am I doing to what I'm solving for. So the first thing I do to what I'm solving is I'm multiplying by a. The next thing I do is I add 3b. So what you do, if I'm doing it in that order, I need to undo it in the opposite order. So I'm going to fill in. The first thing I need to do is do the opposite of plus 3, which is 2 minus 3b. So that tells me ax plus 3b equals 2f. That just gives me clarity that the first thing I need to do is subtract 3b. Then I look at my chart and I need to divide by a, because the inverse of multiplying is to divide. So notice I'm doing exactly the same steps in exactly the same order. It's just that the chart can help me know which one I need to do first. So if you like the chart, then you can use the chart. And if I see you're having difficulty on these problems, I might suggest that you do the chart. Okay, so let's look at number 2. Once again, pretend that b up there, pretend it was just a 6. What would we usually do? Multiply by 4 and subtract by 6. But instead of subtracting by 6, we'll just subtract by b. So circle what I'm solving for, which is x. My whole side is a fraction, so my first step is going to be to multiply by the bottom. Doesn't matter what's in the bottom, I'm going to multiply by it. So that leaves me in the top with x plus b equals 4c. Circle what you're solving for again. What am I doing to x? I'm adding b. So to undo it, I'm going to minus b, which gives me x equals 4c minus b. If I had done my do, I'm just going to abbreviate, and then undo chart, the first thing I'm doing to x is adding b, then I'm dividing by 4. So when I go backwards, I'm going to multiply by 4 and subtract b. So if you like to do the chart or do a combination, then that's obviously fine. Okay, what's different with number 2 and number 3? Well, number 3, it is not a whole side of a fraction. So the first thing, excuse me, the first thing I need to do, always circle x, I need to move that 7 first, because before I multiply by 5, I need the fraction to be the only thing. So I'm going to add 7. Now one of the things that's different is that on the right side I can't combine those together, so I get 2q plus 7. Look at the left side, focus on your x. What is being done to x? Division, so I need to undo that with multiplication. Now here's the nice thing, I guess you could say, about these. I can leave that as 5 times 2q plus 7. Usually I would distribute that out. Either one of those answers is correct, but you can just stop at the first one before you distribute. But it's not wrong to distribute. Number 4. Now we're starting to get a little bit crazy. Remind yourself, what are we solving for? X. Okay, so the first thing I notice is that the whole side is a fraction. So I'm going to get rid of that fraction by multiplying by the bottom, the denominator, which is c. So that gives me 3ax plus 2b equals 4dc. Now, multiplication is commutative. That means you can change the order. So if you are bothered by the fact that d is first, you can make it 4cd. Circle what you're solving for again. What do I need to move first? I need to move the 2b. So minus 2b minus 2b. Simplify that. So 3ax equals 4dc minus 2b. Circle what you're solving for. What is being done to that? I'm multiplying, and I'm multiplying by a bunch of stuff. I'm multiplying by 3, and I'm multiplying by a. So I'm going to divide everything by 3a. And you're done. X equals, make sure you keep that right side exactly as you see it. I have some people, I call them flippers. They start flipping everything. Don't flip it. 4dc minus 2b over 3a. All right. What do we have next? All right, now we're solving for some stuff that is not equal to, or we're not solving for x, we're going to solve for h. And sometimes they write it out in words, and sometimes they write it like this. They'll just put a semicolon h. It's not a j, it's a semicolon, and this you read as solve for. So especially like on tests and stuff, a lot of times I'll write it like that. So you read it as solve for h. All right. Either way, I'm solving for h. Now don't make this one complicated. This is actually the volume formula for a cylinder. So we're starting to see where they actually come into play. So pi r squared h, those are all being multiplied. So I get rid of multiplication with division, and what's outside of my circle? pi r squared, pi r squared. This is where I see the flipping happen. Leave that left side. If you just want to circle that left side, that works for me. Just don't flip it. The v needs to be on the top. And you're done. This equation should look pretty familiar. And we're going to solve for y. This would be helpful if we were trying to graph it. So we're used to doing this to get the slope. So we're just going to use our, move our x term first. So by equals, I'm going to put the x term first, but you could equally write c minus ax. And then we're going to divide by b. Remind yourself you're solving for y, so we're going to divide by b. Now when I'm actually graphing stuff, it's helpful to divide each of those terms by b, but if we're solving a literal equation, we can just leave it as one big fraction. I don't want to do that if I'm graphing, but if I'm not graphing, it's fine. So, or you could put that b under both, so negative a over bx plus c over b is also fine. Okay, so if you flip to the back, we just have a couple more problems. So here we have the area formula for a trapezoid. And I notice I have a 1/2 in front. My first step personally is, even though we're solving for the b1, I'm always going to multiply by that 2 in the fraction just so I don't have a fraction to deal with right now. So that would give me 2a, sorry, a little sloppy, 2a equals h times b1 plus b2. So here you have two ways to do it. I think the way most of you are going to think is to distribute the h and then go on from there, which is totally fine. The short way is to actually think of this one as a do-undo chart. So what am I doing to b sub 1? I'm adding b sub 2, that's what I'm doing here, and then I'm multiplying by h. So what would be the short way would actually be to divide both sides by h. So I could divide by h, so 2 over a, or 2a over h equals b sub 1 plus b sub 2, and now you would just subtract. Basically what this does is shave off one step for you. I can't combine those. Whoops. So I would get 2a over h minus b sub 2 equals b sub 1. So that's a shorter way to do it. I'll show you real quick what it would look like if I hadn't done a do-undo chart, as I'm trying to erase. This. So my other option would be, I'll do this in a different color. Let's do it in green. I could have distributed, so 2a equals hb sub 1 plus hb sub 2, and then I could have gone from there, so minus hb sub 2 minus h times b sub 2. And then I'm solving for b sub 1, so I would divide by h. And those are actually equivalent to the answers that I just had. Those are actually the same thing. So whichever way you like to do, I know most of you will probably just distribute. Okay, let's do one more on this page and then we'll do the other ones in class. And we'll end with a pretty short one, which is solve for b, a equals 1/2 b h. Now, I know you're tempted, since everything is multiplication here, to just divide. I don't like dividing by fractions, so what did I say on the last problem is the first thing I do? Multiply by that 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2 as my first step, and I get 2a equals bh. What am I solving for? B. What's being done to B? Multiplication. How do I undo it? Division. Don't be a flipper. Keep it as 2a over h equals b. Okay, we'll finish the other couple problems in class.